we're thrilled right now to bring in, really, when you think about it, one of the most successful Cleveland Browns in team history.
Yeah.
I mean, what's the idea of football? To score points, right?
Yeah.
Nobody did that more than Phil Dawson.
I did. Let me tell you this about Phil Dawson. So about 5-6 years ago on the radio, we for an hour took phone calls. If you had to buy one Browns jersey since '99, who would you get? And Phil Dawson was second behind only Joe Thomas.
Because they knew he was going to be around.
Now that's a
buy
great
jersey,
thing because Phil was great, but also a little sad because
but they knew
there were
he
no
was going
skill
to be here.
position
Like
players.
he's too good and too valuable to move.
Fans love him.
I mean, the problem with the Browns is we all have this. We have 45 jerseys in our closet that we wore for 1 year,
Right.
or 2 years.
No succession. He's just a bunch of one-offs. But I will say he's one of the most famous Browns.
Because he was great and he was here a long time.
He was.
Yeah.
Now he's the head coach of it's a high school in Texas, right?
In Texas, correct. Austin Hyde Park.
Yeah, there he is, Phil, the great Phil Dawson. No U-turns. No U-turns here. How are you, Phil? Great to see you, man.
How are y'all doing?
Good.
We're
Well,
good.
Fantastic.
Hey, one of the things that we've talked about for the last 4 months on the show is it's the sport is football. Whether anyone likes it or not, kicking decides a large percentage of the games. Why is it that every single team doesn't have, not a special teams coach, but a kicking specialist to help these guys, pro golfers? Tiger Woods, for crying out loud, has a swing coach. Why isn't it, with so much riding on the results, every team doesn't have a kicking specialist on staff?
Man, that's a great question. In my humble opinion, I think there's probably about 3 humans on planet Earth that I would trust to send my kicker to learn. So there may just not be enough guys around that understand what is required to kick a ball. And, one size does not fit all. So even if there were enough guys to go around, you kind of got to figure out what is required to get the job done in the city where you kick. And so it really gets that specific. I mean, in golf, you hear about it a lot. Certain kinds of guys play better on certain kinds of grasses or in certain kinds of environments. So there's a lot of nuance and detail to it. And, to answer your question, I just don't think there's enough humans on planet Earth that even know enough to be a valuable asset to kickers.
Wow.
Phil, you would be one of those few human beings on Earth that could help kickers. I know a couple of years ago you were on my radio show with me and Dustin. You were at Berea. We had you at training camp, and it was great talking to you. And you gave us such good insight into, what it takes to be a successful kicker in Cleveland, because it's very hard. It's one of the hardest places, if not the hardest place, to be a good kicker. Nobody else has really done it besides you at all, not with any consistency. We drafted a kid this past year. He was a high draft pick, and he struggled. He made some long kicks, but then he missed some makeable ones. Has he or the Browns reached out to you at all to have you help him? I mean, are you not have the time, or how does that work?
No, I don't think no one's reached out. And to be honest, if I was a young guy, especially a draft pick, I didn't have that luxury. I was just fighting and scratching to keep a job week to week. And maybe there's something to that, to be honest. But if I was a young draft pick, I don't know if I'd want the old bald guy around telling me what to do or giving me tips. So let's just all take a breath and give it a little time to learn these things out. I tell people I was in year 14 and got a lot of credit for having the stadium figured out. And while that felt good, I was faking it till I make it, man. Each week was a new challenge. Every kick was a new kick. And just because you made one before didn't necessarily mean that you were more prepared for the next one. So it's an incredibly difficult job. If there were more than 32 world-class kickers on planet Earth, I don't think you'd see the turnover throughout the league year in, year out. So I think everybody just needs to relax and let Cade work and let him get used to things, let him get better, and we'll see where we end up.
It's a great point. We always had, in the past, there was more patience with kickers than there is now. Right? Is that fair, Phil, or no?
Yeah, I got lucky. It was an expansion team when I got in there, and there was so much turmoil. I think probably I was able to hide in the weeds a little bit as they were focusing on all the other positions, and I was able to kind of grow into the job. And once things started to settle down a little bit, I was able to start getting better and get the job done. But I had a lot of good people around me, and I think that's an aspect of this that doesn't get talked about very much. Your battery, the snap and the hold, the protection, everything kind of has to work together. And let's be honest, sometimes you got to get lucky, and that ball just has to somehow find its way between those yellow posts, and before you know it, you got a little momentum at your back.
Hey Phil, let me ask you a question. What do you think Cade is? What is he thinking? What is he going through as he's trying to find his way as a young kicker in this league? What do you think he's thinking?
He's probably in survival mode. I mean, I don't want to put words in his mouth. I haven't talked to him personally about this. I know from my experience, it was simply, what am I going to do this week to get the job done so that I have a job the next week? And so you're really just trying to survive and figure things out as you go. We're all going to miss kicks. It happens to the best of them. You just hope you don't miss the wrong ones. And, I think he's shown he's got it in his DNA to rise to the occasion in the big moment. And that doesn't necessarily guarantee that you're going to make every one, but the fact that you can make one shows that you can do it again. So he's going to just need to put his head down, go to work, ignore all the noise. I'm sure he's tired of hearing about me every time he misses a kick. People bring it up. And, I had to hear about Matt Stover, and a guy that I went to his high school, so I didn't seem like I could ever outrun his shadow. But that's part of being in this league. When you have one of 32 jobs in the world, a lot of pressure goes with it, and that's why you just got to find your routine, be confident in what you're doing, and go to work, and they'll let you know when it's all over how well you did.
Phil, let's talk about you just said about your routine. What is your mental preparation? What does that look like when you're in the off season or during the week of how you mentally prepare? Is it meditation? Is there a list of things that you go through, a checklist? Or you just out there I'm going to go out there and kick it and see if it goes in?
I think I have a rather unique approach to that, or had. I'm an old has-been now, so I shouldn't talk in current tense. But I chose to approach the mental side by just conditioning the physical. I never found a technique that I could calm my mind or be totally relaxed or even totally confident. And I know that gets a lot of attention, and maybe for some guys that works. But for me, I was just going to grind physically. And my preparation, I know, albeit as a kicker, and that probably makes a lot of people chuckle how hard I worked physically, but that was how I handled the nerves. I had a routine, I had a preparation, almost like a pre-flight checklist I'd go through each week getting ready for a game. Even during the game, I had a sideline routine I would go through, and so I was constantly doing something physical, focusing on whatever it was.
Looks like he got
that.
There he is.
When the moment came up and I had to make a kick, all that physical preparation would kick in, that muscle memory would kick in, and regardless of what my mental state was, all that training would show up when I needed it to.
Phil, let's talk about one of your former teammates, Ray Bubba Ventrone, who I believe you played 6 years with, both here, and then you guys went together to San Francisco, I think the same year, if I remember correctly. Is that right? Did you guys go the same year?
Absolutely.
Yeah, and so obviously he was a special teams ace. You're the kicker. I'm assuming you guys know each other well. And he did a great job as the special teams coach in Indianapolis. We're excited about him coming, but you know him better than we do. What can you tell us?
It's a slam dunk. It's a slam dunk 10. Best hire I've seen in a long time. I mean, I'm a huge Bubba fan, both as a teammate and now seeing what he's done in the league as a coach. It doesn't surprise me a bit. And I think the aspect that he's going to bring to that room, other than his knowledge and experience, is he's a special teams guy. He came into the league undrafted. He had to fight and scratch just to find a spot. And he had to take advantage of those limited opportunities as a player to make a difference and keep a job. And I think most of the room that he's going to be talking to are guys that are just in that profile. And so there's going to be an ability to relate to the room. Guys are going to respect him both as a coach and as someone who's done it. He's not asking them to do anything that he hadn't personally done in his life. He's still young enough to relate to these guys, and let's be honest, the NFL is a young man's game now. So I think it is a 100% slam dunk, and I can't wait to see what he does there with the special teams.
Hey, Phil, you
That's what we want to hear. Right?
Phil, you follow the Browns. What is your impression of the direction the Browns are going?
It's better for sure. That doesn't mean we're all not frustrated at times, but in my time there, we just never could quite to get our footing. We were constantly changing our front office structure or the scheme that we would run on defense. We'd go from a 3-4 to a 4-3, and obviously you got to build a roster that reflects that, and we're changing coaches all the time. I mean, it was just constantly changing. It feels like, just from an outsider's perspective, that we're at least starting to find our footing. Obviously there's growing pains, and we'd all like immediate results, but seems like the organization and hopefully, like starting now, as a Browns fan now, hopefully that starts showing up and they can start building year in, year out and making progress.
Hey, Phil, top 3 most difficult stadiums to kick in, and if Cleveland's not in the top 3, where does it rank?
Well, Cleveland's 2 for sure. And if it wasn't for Chris Powell and his grounds crew, it'd probably be number 1. Chicago was my house of horrors, and I think a lot of kickers would back me up on that. You know, the thing Chicago has that Cleveland doesn't is a terrible field. And footing is such a huge issue to what we do. I mean, I tell people, imagine swinging or watch Tiger Woods when he's swinging a golf club and his plant foot or one of his feet slips in his swing. You know, generally the ball doesn't go where you want. Well, imagine kicking a ball, and as you come in with your kicking leg swinging through, all of a sudden your plant foot slides. I mean, it's tough.
Yeah.
So that's what makes Chicago so difficult. Cleveland's a close second. And, you know, the whole Great Lakes region is kind of the death of kickers. I mean, Green Bay's tough. Buffalo's tough. But you'd be surprised. You get in some of these southern cities. Tampa Bay, for example, is incredibly difficult. Their end zones, or where that pirate ship is, they're real low. The wind gets in there. They share the field with a college field, so it's generally torn up. Old Candlestick Park in San Francisco, I thought when I got over there, man, I'm going to be in California. Things are going to be so much easier, and I was mistaken on that. So you'd be surprised some other places, but generally, if there's wind and bad footing, it's going to make for a challenging day.
It's amazing, but not surprising how you remember all these years later. Now you still remember all these details. Phil, I
try to forget, guys, but it just gets burned in there.
I'm curious your take, on another one of your former teammates, Tim Couch. Tim joined us weekly during the football season. I'm curious from your perspective, if Tim had ended up in a better situation, if he had been on a veteran team with better talent around him on the offense, and obviously he hadn't had all the the injuries obviously killed his career, how good do you think he could have been in the NFL?
I think he could have been tremendous. I mean, and unfortunately, kind of what I talked about earlier, just the Browns never could quite seem to find their footing. We had a long to do pretty well in other places where the organization had an identity and there was more structure in place. So I think Tim was just wrong place, wrong time. I think Colt McCoy was another guy that kind of falls into that. And I could go on and on about guys who were more than capable to be quality starters in this league, but it was just the wrong time, wrong place. And when you get a window to be a starter in this league and it doesn't work out, you're generally cast more into the backup role from that moment on for the rest of your career.
Phil, what is it about, maybe I'm just making this up. I've been longtime friends with Jay Feely. I've golfed with him a lot. I've talked to him about this. Are you a big golfer?
Used to be.
Okay.
Used to be. The old body doesn't bend the way it used to, so I've kind of given it up.
I know what you're talking about. It seems like golfers, that so many kickers are also great golfers. And I'm wondering what the correlation is. Obviously, you're swinging something and you're hitting an object that's standing still. what is the correlation between those that can strike a golf ball well and kicking a football the way you want to?
Yeah, I think there's coordination. I mean, if kicking was always about the strongest guy, we'd have the nose guard kick. If it was all mental, we'd have Albert Einstein kick.
Right.
So there's a combination of the mental and the physical. And I think the approach to a single moment, in golf, those guys, you when you watch a tournament on a Sunday and it's coming down on the back nine, I mean, they take a couple minutes per shot. I mean, everything in their life is about that one swing that's in front of them. And, the life of a kicker, that's it. Wow. I mean, you do all this work all year long, and it comes down to 30, 35 times you trot out on the field for a season. So just being familiar with the significance of a moment and how your ultimate focus needs to be all about on that moment. And the really good kickers are the ones that can devote that, and then they clear it, they move on, and then they commit fully to the next one. And it's a pretty miserable existence, to be honest. I mean, it's you can go out and make a big kick in the first quarter, and the mistake a lot of young guys make is they think, wow, I'm having a good game here, and then they forget they have 3 or 4 more kicks the rest of the game. So it's a constant battle to just get ready for the next opportunity, and the golf demands that, kicking demands that, and I think that's why a lot of guys are at least halfway decent at getting out on the links and being able to put the ball around a little bit.
Phil, I'm curious your take on, at the end of last season, Brett Maher, I can't remember how to pronounce his last name, the kicker on the Cowboys, right? This guy had a great season. He was one of the best kickers in football, top 5 probably last year. And then in the playoff game, he misses 4 extra points in a row. He does make the 5th, but then in the next playoff game, he misses the first one. I mean, I can't remember you ever having that kind of day. I can't imagine. But, what's that? This is not some rookie who's never done it before. This is he's not an old kicker, but he's good. He's proven. Give me your take me into his mind if you can, with what happened to him at the end of the year, and can he bounce back this season?
That's a great question, and the popular analysis was it went straight to the mental, and I'm not denying that didn't have a factor in it. But what have we already talked about in this little interview? We talked about there's not many people out there that can coach kicking, and even beyond that, it has to be specific to where you do this. Well, where did Maher have most of his success all season long? It was on a nice firm field, inside, and then all of a sudden you get in the playoff games, and what was one of the stadiums I've already said was tough? Tampa Bay. So all of a sudden you're out on the grass. It's late in the year. It's soft. It's a completely different rhythm and feel and timing and everything to what you're accustomed to. And maybe he built a technique that allowed him to kick really well on a fast, firm track. All of a sudden you're on a soft, sloppy track, and your rhythm gets off. And now you don't get the result you want. Now the mind game starts in there. We've all done it on tee shot. We've duck hooked the first 3 holes, and so now we start trying to account for the duck hook, and then we slice one the other way, and now we don't even know what to do. The following week, they go to San Francisco late in the year. I spent 4 years there. They do a decent job on that field, but late in the year, it gets soft, it gets chewed up. So once again, kind of the same thing. So when you've built a technique that allows you to be excellent in one environment, that doesn't necessarily mean you're going to be able to handle all environments. And I'll be honest, late in my, I'd get going, and I halfway had Cleveland figured out, and then we'd go somewhere perfect. We'd go to a dome, and I struggled a little bit in Arizona, to be honest. Here I am on a perfect field with no wind, and all of a sudden I was starting to struggle because I spent so much of my career building a technique that could handle.
We keep icing the kicker.
That's great.
Physical breaks down, then the mental starts kicking in.
Let me ask you this. I imagine it's different between every kicker and every kick, but if you had to, as a baseline rule, what percentage of kicking is physical and what percentage of kicking is mental?
Oh, it's hard to separate it, but I will tell you, if I were to work with a young kicker, and I tell mine here at Hyde Park High School in Austin, where I'm coaching now, it's not about your best kick, it's about your worst kick. So let's build a technique that is repeatable, and simple. And even on your worst kick, on your worst day, you have a chance of getting your job done. And when your worst kick still somehow makes its way through those posts, now you got a career.
Interesting. McNuggets, our producer, has a question for you. He was a wannabe kicker. He's very small, little guy. So really the only the only position he could play in football was kicker, but I'm sure he has some kind of question about that.
No, I actually played left tackle the 1 year of football I played. Got my ass kicked every single
You were never
play.
a left tackle, McNuggets.
No, I swear to God, it was terrible. I played 1 year of football. I hated it so much, I never played again. But, Phil, I actually have two questions for you. One's a coaching question. One's about your time with the Browns. DeQuell Jackson comes on the show every week. He's become a good friend of the program. And I know you played with DeQuell for quite a while. What's the relationship between a kicker and the other guys in the locker room? Because I know special teams is kind of its own unit. But was there assimilation? And if you have a DeQuell story, we'd love to bust his balls for it next time he comes on.
Yeah, I would say for most kickers, and it's their own fault, they kind of isolate themselves and they kind of do their own thing. And as a result, there's not much of a bond with the rest of their teammates. Doesn't make them bad guys, but that's just kind of the typical deal. And I think that's why you see, especially like take, for example, in that Dallas game where Mara ran into some issues in the playoffs, you saw the sideline not handling it real well. Like the guys don't mind that you do that until you don't play well. I chose both because I thought it was a smart choice and also it was just the way I wanted to go. I wanted to be one of the guys. And so every opportunity I had to integrate with the rest of the team, be in the weight room with them, be out on the field running sprints with them, just be engaged as much as humanly possible. You know, one of the great joys of my career looking back was the relationships I had with guys like DeQuell and others, and being able to be a team captain. Now, when I was kicking them sideways, as painful as that was, when I came to the sideline, I had a bunch of dudes who knew it was important to me, that I did everything I could to be ready to do my job, and at least the sideline was a safe place for me to go, as opposed to just hanging out playing Madden all day and never working out and kind of doing my own thing. Now you come to the sideline after hitting one sideways, and that's probably the last place on earth you want to go.
And Phil, one more quick one. I spent 4 years in Texas covering high school football down there before coming up here. I know you're coaching down in Austin now. What's more nerve-wracking, lining up for a game-winning kick or getting ready to prepare for Fort Bend Christian Academy in the playoffs?
Woo, man, it's similar, but at least a kick is only a moment in time. Now as a coach, I'm nervous all the time. I mean, there's not a night that goes by I'm just wondering what happened today that's going to find its way to my desk tomorrow. So it's a full-time job being a coach. It's awesome. It's a great opportunity. I love every minute of it. But man, they both can get at you pretty good.
How realistic is Friday Night Lights there, Phil? Is it close?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, it's pretty accurate. It just is what it is. When you grow up in Texas, most kids, when they lay in bed as an early young child, they just dream about Friday nights. And to be honest, most dads dream about that for their boys as well. And so I'm trying to do as much as I can to give our community here at Hyde Park a Friday night experience they can look forward to. And we were able to turn things around in year one and
Nice.
had a great season, but we still got a long way to go. And hey, that's the life, right? Like just like I said, you make a kick, guess what? You got another one coming. So we're taking that mentality as a program, and we're going to put our head down and go to work, and they'll let us know how well we did.
Man, you sound just like a high school coach.
Yeah, man.
Phil, two questions, and it might be the same answer. Greatest kicker ever, and you've got one kick, the biggest kick in the world to win a Super Bowl. Who do you want? Is that the same guy? And who is it?
Yeah, it's interesting. Adam Vinatieri would definitely be the answer to the second question. I think he proved the bigger the moment. I mean, there was no doubt he was going to make it. But your first question, Adam was not the greatest kicker ever, and I know I'm going to get run out of town for to make those big kicks. He was just going to find a way to get the job done. And, I got to spend a year with him when I was on the practice squad in New England. And I think of all the things I learned from him, that was the thing that stuck with me the most and proved most beneficial for me, playing somewhere where you literally had to figure out a way to make the next kick. So that's an aspect of being a kicker I think doesn't get looked into enough or valued enough is the dude a competitor. Right. I mean, go back and watch him in Little League Baseball. Was he the guy that got the big hit when his team needed it? Or, you know, in basketball, was he taking the charge in the lane when it had been easier to just step out of the way and give up 2 points? You know, you're out on an island. You got the whole world looking at you. You got you're playing in an environment where most people just expect you to make it and don't appreciate how difficult it is. You better have some mental toughness and some competitiveness to you to get the job done. So Adam definitely game on the line. I want him. And then best kicker ever, I mean, I'll just go with the numbers. Justin Tucker, he's rewriting the record books, continues to just pour those kicks in, and we'll see if he can keep it up for another decade, but he's well on his way to being by far the best kicker ever.
Phil, if every kicker in the NFL today had to punt and every punter had to be a kicker, which group on average would have more success?
Kickers. For sure.
I guess I should have figured that one. Yeah.
Hey, there's a little something to it. I mean, you know, I think most kickers, the biggest struggle most kickers would have, in all honesty, is just catching the snap and all the ball handling that takes place to punt the ball. I mean, that's an aspect of punting that doesn't get valued enough. I would argue that your hands are the most valuable asset for any punter. But most punters are longer lever type guys. They're the 4-iron in your golf bag, and that's what allows them to do that. But longer lever guys struggle with accuracy kicking the ball. That's why most really accurate kickers are like 5'10" and a half to 6 foot. There's obviously exceptions to that, but I think punting a ball here and there, a short guy like me could probably get the job done. We're going to hit a lot of bad ones for sure, but we could probably do that. A big, tall guy is going to be able to boom punts, but when you ask him to hit a field goal between 2 yellow posts, he's going to struggle. He may be able to kick it a long way, and that's why a lot of punters are kickoff guys, but the accuracy piece would prove problematic. So as biased as I am towards kickers, I do think kickers could probably punt a little better than punters could kick.
I agree with that.
Makes sense.
You know, Phil, one of the most underrated things of the kicking game is like the snap and the hold. Like when I was coming up, going to camps, it was the first place where coaches used to say, "Hey, if you can snap, we'll give you a full scholarship." And I said, "What?" They're like, "Yeah, if you can snap it, you got to be fast now." And then it was just like, they started giving guys full rides, and then you couldn't even hit the snapper. So we would have the long snapper. He was on our team full. Shout out to Brandon Swagger, by the way. I don't know where you're at, but he was one of the first dudes that I was like, "Man, so you don't do nothing?" He was like, "Yeah, you can't hit me anymore." So between that and the hold, now the hold is key because sometimes punters do it and sometimes the backup quarterback does it. I mean, when I was growing up, do the backup quarterbacks really is that innate, or are they practicing that all the time with you guys?
Now it's the punters.
Well,
now it's the punters.
That's a great question, because when I came in the league, if you made 75% of your kicks, you were considered doing a good job. And that was right at the end of backup offensive linemen being the snappers. And then all of a sudden, it became 85%. And I attribute that growth, or that 10% growth in success rate, to NFL teams finally recognizing how important it was to have a quality snapper. And that's when you start seeing roster spots going to just snappers. And as snappers have gotten better, kicking percentages continue to go up through the roof. So I think it's undeniable to say that the battery doesn't matter. And in my opinion, you got to have 2 out of 3 that are really good at what they do. If you have a really good snapper and holder, you can have an average kicker. But whatever combination it winds up being, 2 of those guys have to be really good. And as you got away from the backup quarterback holding and now went to the punter, that only made it better. And people are like, well, what's the big deal there? Well, what did I say the most valuable skill set for a punter is? It's his hands. So obviously you got a guy that he's used to catching a snap. He can catch it, put it down, and it allows you practice time. Think about when the backup quarterback's over there doing offense all day, what's the kicker doing? I mean, he doesn't have anyone to kick with. So now all of a sudden you got the punter holding. Now you open up all that time during practice for the snapper, the holder, and the kicker to get that rhythm together.
That's fascinating. Last question, Phil. If we took you out to a football field right now and we put you at the 40-yard line, 10 kicks, how many do you make, and what's your range right now?
He just leave you hanging like that.
I tell people.
Wait, Phil, we lost you for a second because your signal froze, so I didn't get your answer.
No, I said, are those kicks in Cleveland?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think I could probably still make most of them.
Wow.
But the thing is, I might not be able to walk for about 3 days after the fact. So, I do have a goal. I just turned 48, and I've always wanted to say I can still make a 50-yarder when I'm 50.
Wow.
So I'm actually going to start stretching again. I'm going to start messing around. I'm thinking about making it a big fundraiser deal. So I'll have to let you guys know I'm canceling the whole event.
100%.
If I get going and it's bad, but if there's any way I can still do it, I'm going to try to get out there in a year and a half or so and see what happens.
We'll call it 50 at 50, and we will be the primary media sponsor. We'll drum up a ton of dough for you.
Let's do play-by-play for it.
Oh, it's got to be made for TV, right?
Well, maybe I should come up there and do it.
Yes.
Listen,
We'd love to have you, Phil.
I'm betting,
you tell
I
us
would
when.
bet all on Phil.
You tell us when.
makes it.
We'll do a 50 at 50, and we will telecast it live, and we will help you raise a ton of money for whatever charity you want.
Yeah.
Well, we might even get DraftKings going on, and I'm sure there'll be some people wagering what's going to happen for May
Phil,
field
you're a
goal or
genius.
Achilles. So.
You're a genius.
You know what it
and
is.
listen, I don't know who the hell it was that did that awful promotion at the Super Bowl. FanDuel with the Gronkowski. It looked like it was CGI.
That was good.
And then they said the kick was no good, but it looked like
I think he made it.
I think he made it too. I don't know what the hell that was, but we'll get it right. 50 at 50.
Oh, it's going to be amazing.
Phil, that's awesome,
Thanks,
man.
Phil.
Great to catch up with you.
Thanks, guys.
We will talk with you soon, I promise you.